A premium account is required for Twitter to go live. Hey guys, welcome to our Yawa episode, our reparations episode. Is Georgia, whoa, let me slow down. Welcome to our Yawa episode. We are Women Engaged, a nonprofit organization that's focused on civic engagement, voter engagement, and uplifting specifically Black folks in the community centered here in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, the title of this episode is called Reparations in Georgia. Is it possible? My name is Sierra Lewis, the Leadership Development and Grassroots Organizing Manager here at Women Engaged. And we also have Mercy, who I'll give the time to introduce to you all as well.
Hi, everybody. Yes, my name is Mercy. I am the Georgia Reparations Research and Advocacy Intern here at Women Engaged, and I'm excited to be speaking with y'all today and speaking with Sierra today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to jump into this conversation. So, really, I want to just set the grounding for this conversation. This is a place of learning. This is a safe space where we can have positive and uplifting conversations, but maybe call out some of the things that we are experiencing. Here at Women Engaged, we recognize that policy and politics impact the lives that we live. And so we have some questions that we're going to ask Mercy, who's been studying reparations with us all summer and has come up with some amazing results. And this episode is going to be a little bit different. We're not just going to define what reparations is, but how do we live in that? And how do we as an organization, as a community, build to getting that? So with that being said, my very first question is, Mercy, as we dive into reparations, I'd really love for you to share a bit about your personal journey with this issue and what really sparked your interest in researching reparations.
Wonderful question, Sierra. I think personally for me, learning about reparations, it was through being involved with social justice work. And this started way back when I was in middle school. I think I was just starting to be more, socially aware and like asking myself questions of like, why is the world structured the way it is? Why are these social inequities that persist? Why is me being a Black woman in America, why am I experiencing things differently than like my peers and my friends? Like who set the system up? Like what's really going on? And I think I'm trying to remember like my first social justice event was kind of the Women's March in DC. And in there, yeah, crazy first experience for sure. Yeah. But in that, I was really like motivated and like, I guess it like mobilized me in a way of like, okay, there are things that I could really do to kind of leave my mark in the world. And coupled that with like what I was learning in school as well, right? I was learning about the transatlantic slave trade. I was learning about slavery in the US. And like with like our history class, we kind of like ended with the civil rights movement. And I feel like my teacher at the time kind of framed it of like, okay, like with the civil rights movement, things were kind of fixed and like, we're all good now. And of course, me, again, like as a Black woman in America, I was like, well, actually, we're not all good now. Like there are things that still need to be improved, still need to be fixed. And so I think on the topic of reparations specifically, though, I learned that in high school. And in high school, I guess it's going to show my age, but that's when the Black Lives Matter movement was really taking off. And we also had 2020, George Floyd. And in there, I was really like, okay, how... And it was like, I guess it was almost the time I was applying for like university and stuff too. So I was like, okay, I really want to this is my calling. This is what I want to do. Like my parents were like, are you sure? Like, don't you want to do something more, the safe route? But I was like, no,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I was like, nah, this is my calling. And
Mhm.
so that's when I was also like formally introduced to the topic of reparations in high school, and then going on to college, where I was able to dive deeper into it.
That's amazing. Can you share a little bit about like the deep dive of reparations in your research since you've been with Women Engaged?
Yes, I have learned a lot. Not only have I learned the history of just like the Black reparations movement, I think that's something that um, a lot of us don't know, and I didn't know. Of course, I knew, okay, what reparations is. I knew what we were striving for, but I didn't know that the Black reparations movement has been active all the way since before emancipation, around 17. I don't want to get the year wrong, but around the early 1700s of like Black folks
Mhm.
going to the courts and filing for their freedom.
Mm,
And so I think that's one thing that I've really taken away from the research that I've done. And another thing is like focusing on the policy aspect of it, of seeing how many successful local reparation initiatives there have been, and like using that as kind of like, I don't know if motivation is the right word, but just like being inspired by that, and just knowing like there is a feasibility to it, right? There are people who support this, and it is possible, right? Um, and those are just like some of the few things that I guess I could touch on now. And I know we have like other questions that are gonna go into that deeper, but on the surface level, those are some things that I've really taken away so far.
absolutely. Okay. I want to transition a little bit into like your work specifically. How have you seen reparations, even if it's not loud, it's not on the forefront, right? That's just not something that we hear too often unless you're in those intentional spaces. But in
Yeah.
this current political climate, where do you see reparations fitting into where we are and in this movement? And specifically, what unique perspectives have you gained?
Hmm. Another great question. And since I've already kind of touched on like the feasibility aspect of it, I think ever since I um, was aware of like the term reparations and like the fight for reparations, I think it started as something like people are like, oh, it's not as feasible. Oh, that's just like this pie in the sky type thing. And then it evolved to people just actually being more open and like taking it seriously, of like, no, guys, like this actually needs to happen right now. But then now with the political climate, and with things like diversity, equity, and inclusion being restricted,
Mhm.
and we start to see actual like, I saw this one bill. I think, oh, I don't know if I should say the specific state,
I'll find it and
but huh?
you talk, I'll find the bill.
Oh, okay, okay. I feel like it's in Texas, but it was calling for like reparations to be like banned or something, and so it's like, how do we how do we combat that, right? How do we still keep on going while we're being harmed right now and being attacked for something that we know is needed and is crucial. And I don't even want to get into them trying to rewrite history, right? And like um, not teaching kids about slavery, or like formulating as slavery was like beneficial. Like, oh, please. um, so I would say like, yeah, those are some things that have come up in like the current political climate. But
Mm,
in terms of like my unique perspectives, I kind of also touched on like how there's been successful local reparation efforts and
mm,
initiatives, and I think this, again, like, it is a source of like hope and a source of inspiration and a source of like, there are people who support in this, there are people who believe in it, and it's possible. But I do think, in a lot of like articles that I read, were like saying, yes, we love this, but let's also not like remove the federal government of its responsibility, and let's not remove the pressure from them, because again, like most of the harmful and like systemic inequities stemmed from like federal legislation and federal initiatives. So
Ooh.
I guess that's like an example of like a unique perspective that I've gained from this, because I think coming in to the internship, I was like, okay, like maybe if we're not able to do the federal, let's just focus on the state or local municipality. But it's like, no, we can do both, right? We can work with the local, especially in this current political climate, and then preparing for when the time comes when we're able to kind of push through on the federal level.
Ooh. You said you mentioned reparations on a federal level. For folks who may be new to this conversation, can you explain what is happening at the federal level with reparations?
Yeah, so currently we have HR 40, which was introduced by Representative John Conyers, who's from Michigan, I believe. He did pass away in 2019, but in the years that he was a representative, he actually introduced this bill every year for 30 years. Talk about dedication and talk about, not giving up, right? And in 2020, like every year was introduced, but it was hard with filibustering and just politics for it to, get on the House to get a vote. But in 2020, it did come close. Either 2020 or 2021, it did come close. But again, now in with the current political climate, we're not sure how how that could go. But with his passing, another representative did take up that mantle of like reintroducing HR 40. And also, let me back up. HR 40 is a legislative bill that would commission a study on reparations and how slavery has was carried out and has impacted African Americans in the United States. I should have led with that, but my bad. And so that's kind of how that's where reparations on a federal level is kind of at right now on the federal level.
Thank you so much for that. While you're talking, I just went ahead and pulled up the bill in Congress. .gov. By the way, you can look up any bill that you want to find in Congress.gov, and it'll show you exactly where that legislation is. So let me stop talking for just a second so I can finish typing and put this in. But right now, it is currently listed as HR 40, Commission to Study and Develop Reparations Proposals for African Americans, and it's currently being held by Representative Anaya Presley from Massachusetts. So if you want to learn more about that bill, I urge you to just go to congress.gov and read. You can read the text as it is, but there's also like so much material, whether that's reading books or whether that's like going on, like watching a YouTube documentary about reparations. We'll have some books and we'll share some recommendations at the end, but I did just want to plug that in. Also, sign up for us. Shameless plug. If you are new to Women Engaged and just want to keep up with the research that we're doing and find ways to get involved and have these conversations on a personal level so that we can push to seeing this happen in Georgia, sign up to volunteer with us. Sign up to be on our newsletters to see what's going on. We've also got an event coming up this Saturday at Greenbrier Mall, September 20th. Mercy will be there as well, talking about reparations. So if you want that one-on-one conversation in that context, we provide that, which is exactly why Women Engaged was founded. Shameless plug. I'm going to jump back into this conversation. And thank you so much for guiding that. You touched on one thing, and that was feasibility and like the belief that this can happen, both in our community and at a legislative level. Can you talk about I would love to dispel the myths of why this is not possible. I know this wasn't in the script, but sorry. What are some of the things that you hear or that you've seen? What are some of the messaging points for the folks saying that it's not possible? And how has your research aided you in combating that?
Yeah, great question. I think, yeah, when it comes to feasibility, I think people tend to focus on like, okay, the dollar value of like, oh, this would cost so much money, or they focus on like, how would it be carried out? Like, is it checks, right? Is it like enacting certain programs, right? And then another third part of that feasibility is like, who would be eligible for reparations? Is it Black people? Is it African Americans? Is it people who can trace their lineage to enslaved individuals?
Mhm.
So those are the three main things that I've seen
Mhm.
when it comes to feasibility. And I guess I could go through each thing one by one, and some of the examples that I've come across in my research. The first of the cost, I would refer to the number of reparation efforts that have taken
Mhm.
place in the United States and honestly across the world too, right? We have Germany after World War II and after the Holocaust, who has since then paid billions of dollars to the Holocaust survivors and their families, and to things like creating museums, things like spreading education and awareness about the topic so that it doesn't happen again.
Mhm.
And those billions of dollars came from the German government, but it also came from private institutions like
Mhm.
banks and things like that, who
Oh.
also played a role in carrying out those atrocious acts, right? Um, and coming back to like the United States, right? We've seen reparation efforts for certain groups, right? An example being survivors of the Japanese American internment camps. We also have some reparation efforts for Native Americans, and so I would kind of point that out to be like, in terms of money, like it's been done before and it is possible. Not to mention, the United States is number one in the entire world when it comes to GDP and economy. Hello. And to go back to the fact that we wouldn't be number one if it
Mhm.
weren't for the free labor
Wow.
that was provided by
Wow.
enslaved people. We would
Yes.
not be,
Yes.
right? So it's like, okay, y'all complaining about the money, but the money would not exist.
Absolutely. I would love to touch on that because I think so many times I see like pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and I'm going to call it out. I don't. Ooh, I struggle with like calling out what's bad when I want to uplift what's good. But you mentioned the bill in Texas, and I found it. It's by a Congressman Brian Babin, 36th district of Texas, and we know what's happening in Texas right now. But literally, it says that. Um, States have the rights to govern themselves, but they shouldn't expect a federal bailout when their radical policies lead to economic disaster. It's called the No Bailout for Reparations Act. So trying to twist the ways um, or trying to twist the narrative of what reparations looks like. They say the key points are protecting taxpayers. You just addressed that. The funds are there. American pays for what America wants to pay for. It says preventing fiscal irresponsibility, assuming though that if someone gets money or receives some sort of reparations from the government, that it's only a handout. And we've seen the United States bail out billionaires for much less, right? And also, and last talking point that they have is opposing radical identity politics. But we live in a society, specifically in America, where politics and identity have been intertwined. And having this conversation, or even calling out the fact that it is identity politics, even from the other side, proves a point even more that this has become a racial issue, or it is a racial issue that continues to proceed. Oftentimes, it's like the why why do your families or why do your generations need uh, money or some type of compensation for what they experienced? When we realize, though, or I want to kind of highlight, though, that like you're saying, America was literally built on backs of slaves who looked like you, like me, who have our DNA literally, and created this American utopian economy and society. So I just want to call that out. Like every single time, it's like it's a handout. Like a handout, we literally lifted up and built up this country. So even if it is a handout, we can take it. We can take it. Um,
And to
Go
add
ahead.
on, oh sorry, I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, to add on to that, like I think when people like racialize things like that, like this, they miss out. I guess the objective truth. And what I'm trying to get at is like when it comes to, let's say, handouts, quote unquote,
Mhm.
we could look at something like the GI Bill, right? Which gives members who have been in the military education, higher education, little to no interest rate on mortgage, and help with the down payment. And that was something that I think it began in 1917. I know it was during like World War One, World War Two. Somebody could say, "Is that a handout?" You don't know. And when it comes to that, there's also a racialized aspect of it. And like people are like, "Oh, not everything is about race," but y'all are the ones who make it about race, right?
Yeah.
GI Bill, Black men who were in the military, who fought on the in the principle of like, okay, fighting for America, right? They did not. A lot of them did not reap the benefits of the GI Bill, right? So it's like, okay, even things that are
Not
handouts, like
racialized.
it's
Yeah.
not equal across the board. Another thing that I came across in my research was the Homestead Act. And this was a piece of legislation in, I would say, the 1800s, where American families were given a certain acreage. The specific number is escaping me right now. In the Midwest to support like the expansion to that area, and this was free land that only white families or white Americans were able to participate in. So it's like historically, the U.S. does, you know, providing for their citizens, but unequally.
I went ahead
So
and put this up on the screen. The Homestead Act specifically was signed in 1862, which gave 160 acres. 160 acres. I see that it didn't catch the rest of the comment, which was cultivating the land. They had to cultivate the land for at least 5 years. Talking about 160 acres, what was the original promise, or has there ever been an original promise to African American communities for reparations in the first place?
yeah, I think the one that most people are familiar with is 40 acres and a mule. And that's actually where HR 40 got its name, because it was like a node to 40 acres and a mule that was never actualized. And this happened, after the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln was president, and they they had this goal of like providing, African Americans, enslaved people who were now free, kind of a starting point, right? Because again, they had been working for free. They clearly, of course, they weren't getting paid, so it's like how it's unrealistic to expect them to like, okay, now y'all free, go do whatever y'all need to do with no money, no land, like literally nothing to their name, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where the idea of the 40 acres and a mule came about, of like, okay, we can give y'all land, we can give y'all equipment so that y'all can start fending for yourselves. But with of course, unfortunately, Abraham Lincoln getting assassinated and Andrew Johnson being president, he was a sympathizer of the South, and he immediately put plans. He immediately stopped plans for this to be actualized. And not only did he stop this from being actualized, he gave reparations to the white slave owners for the land that was taken from them. Right. Another example of a quote unquote handout.
Like every time I hear it like it's new. So you mean to tell me, like, instead of giving reparations to who's Andrew Jackson, which is like, actually no, but we will give. You're going in and out. I'm not sure if there you go. There you go. You're good.
Am I back?
Yeah, you are. So Andrew Jackson was like, actually scratch that. We're just going to pay the same people who have been benefiting from the system of slavery in the first place. Interesting. Interesting. You're talking about like what it had been, or what it would have been like to um, learn that you're free, right? And that you should now be able to access 40 acres and a mule. And I think about like my great grandparents who literally were sharecroppers and like understanding that the direct connection to slavery and the history of slavery and how that impacted generations beyond 1865. The fact that like I can drive out to the country and see like where my family tilled land and paid out everything, everything. Like, yeah, you're paying rent, but like it's not yours. You're paying for a mortgage, it's not yours. You're cultivating food for something that you won't get the profit off of, right? Um, and so like just really grounding ourselves in like the direct and immediate impacts. We, you and I are both still descendants of folks who have had direct impacts of slavery or the remnants of slavery, and just continuing to call that out. You said something in a conversation that I would love to like go over one time. You talked about how people try to frame slavery as if it was only a blip in time or a
Mm.
blip in our history. Can you say that quote and explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So the quote I was referring was from Tennessee Coates, where he said a lot of Americans kind of look at slavery as this like blip in American history. Like everybody agrees that it was wrong, it was abhorrent, but it was just a little aspect of it. But Tennessee Coates was like, actually, slavery, it was the whole. It was, yeah, people look at it as a bump in the road, but it's actually the whole road. Like slavery is what um, made possible the United States that we are a part of today, and made for all the institutions, all the um, companies, the government. Like without slavery, we would not have the U.S. that we have today, literally. And I saw I feel like that was so eye opening to me because yeah, I think it's also not by design, right? Like we don't. Yes, we touch on slavery in school and things like that, but it's not to the full extent that it was. We don't talk about the full harms. We don't talk about the full psychological effects. We don't talk about how it could be argued that in current day, yes, slavery was quote unquote abolished, but we still have the prison industrial complex. We still have all these systemic oppression and systemic harms that Black people are enduring today. And so um, that's what, and that's why I really like that quote, and that's why I had mentioned it in that conversation because I feel like it just serves as this grounding point and just like helps to really contextualize and like imagine the full. And I feel like it still doesn't show, of course, like the full scope of slavery and like how it's affected the U.S., but you kind of start to see it a little bit.
I just put
Oh,
this
and I
down.
see you put up the
Yeah,
timeline.
really conceptualize like how long slavery. Can we also add? I do want to add on this call, and we will provide the education further. That like slavery never ended, right? Um, like to be quite frank, the 13th Amendment um, changed slavery to only being a punishment for a crime. So it still exists, and we are still battling the impacts of that when it comes to mass incarceration or when it comes to the prison industrial complex. So even looking at this like timeline is accurate, but it's still going. Like slavery literally still exists. Um,
And
um,
I even in speaking about like current events, right? Because we have this. I just saw the segregation Jim Crow. We're seeing reports of, I don't know if you've seen, two people being hanged, lynched
mhm,
in 2025.
mhm.
Like that's insane. And I
I
think
do.
it goes to show that this is still, like you said, still ongoing, still happening, unfortunately.
Mm, that's uh, like chills because kind of get to a point where um, we're at a point where things are happening in this country that we thought stopped, or at
Mhm.
least media portrayed that it ended. Um, like I want to honor his name and not just like use the story as like an example at Delta State University. Um, wow. And in some of these articles, they are literally not even naming him. They're just stating that it happened. So give me just 1 second to like find that. Um, because we are still living in very real, we're still experiencing the very real impacts of slavery. His name was Trey Reed, and he was only 21 years old. at Delta State University, getting his degree, living life like we have lived life. Like he didn't, um, yeah, yeah, didn't even get to like do the things that society says do, and you will be protected or you may be protected, right? Um, so just like, and even though that's like the tie-in here is how we are continuing to experience the impact of like prejudice and slavery in this country. And what I want to do here at Women Engage is not just like sit in like the harm, but like how do we build community? So Mercy, for you, how has Women Engaged been a platform or a community where you can, and I'm going to take this off the screen as well, um, where you can explore, where you can like envision what life would look like, what our society would look like when we build the power to see the things that we want.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. I think even just through my role as a reparations and advocacy intern, I've been able to feel empowered by the knowledge that I've gained, and feel empowered by the community engagement efforts that Women Engage has. For example, um, what we're doing right now
Yeah.
of like disseminating the things that I've learned, and just like having a candid conversation about um, not only this topic, but like, yeah, current events, how, community, having that participation from community members,
Mhm.
I think is so important. I think also, as you were mentioning, the Justice Jam that is happening this Saturday, um, of just being in community and just not only talking about like, oh, this is like wrong, and like just giving people information, but giving people a space to come to again be in community, and to start envisioning together what like true liberation could look like. And I think even that of itself, of just being even giving space, or holding space for us to kind of envision it is like radical, because I feel like the system is designed in a way of like, they don't even want you to like think that that's a possibility. They want you to accept things
Mhm.
for what they are. And I think being in community, being able to be like, no, I don't accept this, it's not right. And uh, 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 something like Women Engaged to give y'all the space, and to give the advocacy opportunities that y'all do, I think is so essential in this fight.
Absolutely. Through our time or through your time in this internship and getting to know you, I know that reparations is both personal for you and for I, and the just topic of reparations. From your own experiences, what informed your approach to studying and advocating for reparations?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that, social justice background that I touched on in the beginning. But it's also my own experiences of being a Black woman in America, and having the experience that I've had. I'm a first gen student. I grew up low income. And it's like all those things, of course, inform how I see the lenses that I see through life. Um, and I think they've given me this ability to view things intersectionally.
Mhm.
um, and another aspect of that is that both of my parents are from Kenya. And I think that has also informed how not only like this like issue reparations, but just life in general. But in connecting it to the reparations conversation we're having, of course, that brings in colonialism, and how um, these issues are intersected, like Black reparations and colonialism and neocolonialism. All these issues are interconnected and, and intersect, and like being able to realize like, if we tackle one thing, or if we like make progress in one thing, it also affects all these other things as well. And I think that's such a powerful way to look at things, because I think oftentimes you can feel like, oh my goodness, there's so much going like wrong in the world, which there is.
Mhm.
And you're like, how can this one, like me doing work in one thing, um, help anything? But actually, it helps everything when
Right.
you look at it from that approach. And so I think that's something I tend to fall back on. a lot. And go ahead.
No, I'm listening. I'm agreeing.
Okay. And I was saying, like, to even touch on the intersectionality part, a little bit of reparations, is like even looking at it through the reproductive justice lens.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to go into that a lot because it is deeply painful and just like scarring, but like what Black women had to go through during that time period, again, abhorrent, dehumanizing, but realizing the importance of censoring that aspect of it, and bringing it to the limelight. I think that also is a way that like my experiences and my intersectionality I've used it to approach my research and has informed my approach.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Shout out to Kimberly Crenshaw for defining and naming intersectionality, which I think is like uh, so necessary in these conversations. But even prior to Kimberly Crenshaw, the Black liberation movement understood the value and the connectedness of like our liberation. Um, we are not free until we are all free, right? Whether that be us in America, African Americans actually achieving true liberation and freedom, or whether that is also battling neo-colonialism that is still taking over the continent, or yeah, I'll use the continent as a whole of Africa. What we're seeing like um, in the Congo and so many other places, like grounding ourselves and like this, like even just this topic of reparations. I want to like highlight that um, how do I even say it? Institutionally, it's not that some senators or elected officials just don't want to sign a bill because of the fiscal irresponsibility that they claim that it would bring. But achieving reparations in the United States would do two things. Number one, cause America to admit it's wrong and the harm that it has done to African Americans. Number two, it would be a sounding board and an echo chamber to the entire world, that everything that the United States was built on, which is claimed to be the greatest country in the world, has implications across the globe, specifically the global South. So reparations and for us is a lot louder, a lot heavier than it would have been, or than it was for reparations to folks who were harmed by the Japanese internment camps. Like the plight of the African American community is different, and so just like holding that as well as we push for this, like it's heavy because it doesn't just center us, and we know that when we though benefit from these things, the entire world will also benefit from that. I'm going to bring this back in. I'm going to bring this back in as we talk about what reparations could look like and the potential impact of reparations. What excites you the most? And then what are some key challenges you see in actualizing reparations?
Yeah, I think what excites me the most is Black folks just being able to have the human experience that they were meant to have, to experience true collective liberation and to be able to experience a life without systemic oppression, to be able to carry out or live their dream lives, to pursue their passions and interests, whatever that may be. I think that's what excites me the most.
Mm,
Um, I think key challenges, and I think we touched on this a little bit, is again people having varying ideas. Well, okay, let me take a step back. People have experienced systemic harms differently, and of
mm,
course, every experience differs from person to person. So, of course, people are going to have a lot of different opinions on like how they would want to see reparations actualized. Whether that be a cash payment, whether that be programs, whether that be um, like systems in place. I think that would be a key challenge of just getting everybody at the table and like being able to incorporate multiple different venues of carrying out reparations. And I think this is something that I came through my research of like what makes a reparations policy effective. And one of those things is making the policy a living and breathing document.
mhm,
When it comes to something like Black reparations, 400 years in the making, it's not going to be all addressed in like one piece of bill and like this is it, and no flexibility whatsoever, no input from the community, nothing of the sort. So I think maybe taking approach would be a way to address
Mhm.
that challenge, and for it to maybe to start one way, but then the community is like, okay, this was good when it first started, but I think we need to pivot to this other thing, and that being a possibility. So I think maybe that's a way to address that challenge.
Yes.
Um, Another challenge goes back to just like that feasibility aspect of it, and um, Black folks just being able to be hopeful about like reparations, and which is again totally valid. Again, it's been 400 years. We are currently experiencing um, harms. We're currently being oppressed,
Mm.
and not only that, like even when reparations is actualized, um, the government owes a debt that could never be repaid.
Mm.
Like lives were lost. Um,
Mm.
People worked like that was their life. They worked from the moment they were born until they died. Like those are not things that um, can ever be fixed. That's not something that is fixed with a specific dollar amount, a specific check. That's not
Mhm.
right. And another part of it is just like the psychological harms, the psychological harm of living in this kind of state of like knowing that you're living in a country that has certain things that are against you, right? So I think that is a really another really key challenge. I'm not sure how we could go about kind of addressing that because again, it is very valid. But I think one thing that I kind of choose to look at it is that the system does rely on Black people,
Mhm.
and with us refusing to partake in that system, and with us um, fighting for like reparations, something has got to give. Like y'all are gonna have to run us our money at the end of the day. And I think we also maybe start thinking about like the cost of like reparations not being actualized is the system continuing to be like this. And I feel like low key, the state of our country right now goes
Mm.
to show what happens when reparations isn't actualized. We have um, the polarization, we have um, people just being frankly racist out and about, like loud and proud.
Mhm.
We have a country that may be fractured, right? And in order to like address this and have like a true democracy and to have um, a country that is fair and equitable, that all people were created equal, reparations has to happen.
You did something. You literally just said like all people are created equal, which, if I'm not mistaken, is in the Constitution, right?
It is. It
Just
is.
confusing. I mentioned the Constitution for two reasons. Number one, you talked about reparations being a living and breathing thing, right? We've seen Congress pass bills that needed amendment after amendment after amendment after amendment. The Constitution as we know it also required amendments and amendment and amendment. How many are there? I think there's like, I don't even, I'm not going to do that to myself on this call.
Same.
um, but I will look it up because now I'm trying to like, um, how many are there? There are 27 amendments to the Constitution. If the Constitution can get 27 amendments, a bill that would provide reparations to the very folks who built this country can be tweaked a couple of times. Just wanted to highlight that. Um, um, dang it, it's gone. You mentioned something else. We'll flow. We'll flow with it. Um, mm, mm, mm. Well, I'm gonna get to the next question. We've talked a lot about the history of reparations, the impact of reparations, what it looks like for us to build community. I really want to tap into that more. As Women Engage continues our work on this issue, what's some advice that you would give to our audience about how they can get more involved in this movement for reparations in their own communities?
Yeah, I love that question. Um, First thing I would say, and you said it before, shameless plug, please follow Women Engaged on Instagram, Facebook, our socials. Visit our website, womenengaged.org, to stay updated, um, and have more, be a part of more like not conversations, but yeah, conversations like this actually. For example, the live we're doing right now, again, the event that we're having on the 20th, where we'll also be talking about reparations, and to stay involved in like advocacy opportunities that might happen. And I would also say, in terms of the local level, we've mentioned of how reparations efforts are being more successful in the city, municipal, or state level, and this could look like attending city council meetings if you're able to, being really familiar with your city council members, knowing their names, and like knowing where they stand on issues such as reparations. So those are some of the things that I would suggest as like a call to action.
Ooh, we have a question in the comments. It says, what do you say to folks who believe reparations is not possible given how long it's been?
Yeah, I think I would touch on what we had said of like I know a common argument that people say is like, oh, slavery was long ago. Like, what does it have to do with now? But it has everything to do with now. The current systemic inequities that affect us are a direct line to slavery and to policies that have been put in place by the federal government that excluded African
Yes,
Americans, right?
yes,
So
yes.
it's like it's been long, and it's been long. Like that's the point of like, y'all, we need reparations because it's been long. Like it's been too long.
Absolutely. You're very passionate about this. I would love to know. And so, with someone in the chat, what's been the most impactful thing that you've learned in your research?
Ooh, this is such a good question. Um, I would say the most impactful thing is just how a lot of these reparation, like local reparation efforts, are able to be successful, and how they even like start to begin with. And it really starts in the community, or people just gathering and
Mhm.
saying, hey, like, we want to see this happen. How do we go about it? And them being in the community, going maybe door to door, asking people of like, how do you feel about reparations? Like, how would you like to see reparation actualized? Something that Women Engaged does, and being able to start to mobilize people that way, and bringing these people together so that they are able to go to the Capitol, go to the legislators, and be like, hey, this is an issue that we want to be addressed, and how would we go about doing it. So again, it's just that like importance of being in community, and importance of like, if you want to be involved, there's more than likely there's an opportunity for you to get involved.
So, you mean like an opportunity like joining us at the Greenbrier Mall on September 20th at our Justice Jam?
Exactly like that, yes.
Good. Well, thank you so much. I feel like we can go on for like hours on this topic, but I'm going to condense this to one last question. Two. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about what this work means to you on a personal level? I'd really love for our audience to get a glimpse into the humanity in your research and the humanity in reparation.
Yeah, another great question. I would say my passion and what I would want to be highlighted in my career is that I want to enact social change,
Mhm.
through research, advocacy, and policy. Um, I reached this, because I had to kind of experience and like gain some work experience before I knew, like, okay, this is what my skills are,
Mhm.
and this is how I feel like I could best contribute to the issues that I care about.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's just really what it boils down to. Like, I want to use my skills to be part of the change that I want to see. And I think being like having a sociology degree, it just kind of shows you like how things are isn't the way things have to be. Like
Mm,
things can be different, and it's I want to do my part in making things different. That could be having this call where we're just talking, having a candid conversation about reparations. It could look like the research that I conducted this summer, reading articles, reading bills, right? It could look at like a variety of different things. And I think that's where I kind of just get my, I guess, humanity behind the research. And I honestly couldn't see myself doing anything else. That's the thing of it. Like people are always like, oh, if you aren't doing this, like what else would you do? Like I don't have an answer to that because I'm like I can't even imagine that. Like this is what I love to do, and this is what I hope I'm lucky enough to do for the rest of my life. So yeah.
I have. I said that was my last question, but it's never my last question. Oh man, I have a question I'm going to ask you, but also challenge myself to answer as well. Can you give me one article, one book, or any form of media for folks to read or engage in on their own to study about reparations?
That I can. And you said one of each?
Yes, just
Or
like what,
maybe
like yeah. I say
okay.
book and then like a different form of media because like some people don't like reading. If they want to watch something, what would it be?
Mm, for in terms of watch something, I would definitely recommend going on PBS and just searching like reparation of the Black reparation movement, and they have lots of like short videos, long videos as well, that are really informative and well made. Shout out to PBS and public media. Hello. Um, a book that I would recommend is I had to like make sure I'm saying the whole title. The Black Reparations Project, Handbook for Racial Justice, um, which has three authors. But if you search that, that should pull up. I'm thinking of like an article that I really enjoyed. So give me a second.
Mhm.
Of course. Of course, Google doesn't want to work.
Well, we should
Um,
probably.
I would say like something it would that would be like a good intro is Black Reparations in the United States, written by Darity. William Darity is actually one of he's a scholar that he's all about like reparations and Black reparations. He's written many books. He's written articles. He's a professor. So I would say maybe that
Mhm.
to start with that article and then as a starting point to like many threads. So the
Sure.
complex, the nuancity of the Black reparations movement in the United States.
I love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I think to answer the question as well in verse, the case reparations by I get his name wrong every time, but you said it earlier.
Oh,
Tanisi Coates.
Tennessee codes.
Tanisi Coates. Tanisi Coates. The case for reparations. It's a really long but very informative document on why reparations is needed. Like literally studying um, the 250 years that slavery existed into Jim Crow and now what we are currently experiencing would be a article that I would suggest reading. And I'm really not a visual girl. I'm a book woman. I'm an article woman. So if it had to be something that I would watch to maybe help me to study what reparations is, me too. I always go to PBS and just look up documentaries um, um, when I need to. But I think for me, like when media portrays the hardships that we as Black women are experiencing, um, when it's written and directed by people who have lived experiences, um, it shows like the life that we're living. And I say this all the time, like the lifestyles that some of us are forced to live are not because we chose to live them or because we made the wrong decisions to be on this path, but because society and folks who had power created this system and wanted us to have those struggles so that we would not be able to experience true liberation. And I think, not even think, reparations isn't even the answer to true liberation. It's just a part of that. And we at Women Engage are exploring all of the ways in which liberation can be achieved, whether that's reproductive justice, whether that's focusing on reparations. We are also studying the Crown Act, the liberation to show up to work, to show up to businesses, to just live and exist as who we are. So, again, thank you so much, Mercy. I think that we have come to a good ending point for this conversation. There will be many more. Stay tuned for our next few episodes of Yawa here at Women Engage, where you can stream on Instagram Live, you can stream on Facebook Live, YouTube, and maybe X, formerly known as Twitter. But
I
this
always
formerly known, gotta put that part in there. So we're so excited. And if you have questions, or even if there were questions that you didn't want to put in this chat right now, feel free to reach out to us. Follow us on Instagram at Women Engaged, women underscore engaged. Reach out to us in our DMs. Follow us. Show up to our events. We are here. We want to continue to build community. Thank you again so much, Mercy. I'm so excited for where you're headed. I appreciate your research, and I know that the work, or I just want to like affirm in you right now that the work that you're doing is already creating impact. So again, thank you, and have a great rest of your evening, guys.
Yes, thank you for having me, all, and thank you for being engaged.
For sure. Hey, Michelle. I just added us all back. Oh, no, no, no.